Good afternoon, everyone. I want to first thank you for coming here today. This is a great opportunity. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about some cold cases. We're going to talk about some closure, but also we're going to talk about some partnerships. And this is what this truly is about today for us in Youngstown and our partners across the county, across the state. We're going to have that opportunity. If I could, I just really want to talk about this is no one case is just going to solve all. But sometime when you can give family closure and to find that their loved one, that we found some closure for their loved one, it's a real big piece to us. Many of us have probably had a chance to know a family or had a family member that either went missing or didn't know their whereabouts. And I think today we're going to talk about the partnerships that we were able to forge during this case. And I really want to say this, and I have to say this, Attorney General, that I really want to commend our officers, our men and women, our professionals of law enforcement who continuously don't let a cold case just sit there without keep swinging at it. And today, I want to commend those officers for continuing to strive for excellence. And I think when we continue to do that, we'll continue to see more of these cases where we can come together with our partnerships. And without that, I don't want to take all the time up today. I really want to welcome our Attorney General to Youngstown again. We've stood in this room multiple times, and I thank you for your leadership across the state, but also in the county. And when you come to Youngstown, we appreciate you for your staff. And when I'm working with your staff, they always are ready to help, to roll up their sleeves and to do whatever they can for Youngstown. And we appreciate you. So, without further ado, I want to introduce the Attorney General David Yost to the City of Youngstown for a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pretty proud of my staff, too. It's good to be back in your city, and especially on something like this. I'm thrilled to be here. You're going to see in a few moments talk about a partnership and how just all the way on the other side of the state, Fayette County, Sheriff Vern Stanforth is going to join us. Because we've got not one, but two John Doe cases that we're going to talk about today. When I'm asked about how long an investigation is going to take, my least favorite question, and I get it every single time, the answer is we don't know how long it's going to take because it's like unrolling a ball of string. It's done when you get to the end. And you don't really know how long that's going to take. So this case took a long time. And they're really disparate cases. They have, in a lot of ways, little in common. Fayette County, 180 miles on the other side of the state from this area, the Mahoning Valley. And the cases go back to the 1980s. But the men didn't know each other. Their cases are not related. Certainly nobody would have expected that these cases would come together in the way that they did. When I took over as Attorney General, one of the things that was on my heart was to provide some help to local law enforcement in the cold case area. And I want to give thanks to BCI Superintendent Joe Morbitzer, who's in the back of the room. Joe, raise your hand. Because his leadership, former police chief, career law enforcement, he was the guy that came up with the nuts and bolts, what it took to put this thing into being. And here's the idea. BCI exists for a very simple reason. Not every police department is big enough to have specialized law enforcement investigatory tools. For example, DNA, intelligence, cybercrime tools, and on and on. So BCI serves as that kind of a detective bureau for the state. And cold cases are one of those things where things fall through the cracks. You go out, you work the case, time goes on, the leads start to dry up, you're not getting anywhere. And if you're a small department, a lot of times you want to keep going, but you don't know what else to do. The cold case unit is designed to add to those local efforts and to provide new technologies, the advancement in a whole lot of things, including DNA and firearms, facial reconstruction. We've got some amazing tools, and those amazing tools have brought closure for a couple of families whose loved ones have been missing for a long time. Let me say one other thing about this, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over so that you can talk to the people that really, hear from the people that really do the work. These aren't magic wands. Now we have identified two remains, two people who died. Maybe both of them died from a criminal act. We can't say that for certain on at least one of the cases today. But this is just the beginning. This isn't the end. In a murder investigation, you typically start with the last day the victim was alive. You go out, you talk to their family, their friends, their known acquaintances. You try to trace where were they, who did they come into contact with, what was going on in their lives. When you don't have an identity, you can't do any of that shoe leather work. So where we are today is that the shoe leather starts again. What we have today with these results is the beginning place 35 years later to begin picking up the trail and trying to move closer to a place of justice. Very proud of my team at BCI. I'm continually amazed. I often say that superheroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear lab coats. And a lot of them carry BCI credentials. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and let you talk to, who's next? Come on up.
Thank you, Attorney General, for coming today. Thank you all for being here this afternoon. When I became police chief several years ago, I didn't realize the importance of some of these partnerships. And one thing I want to tell you, as long as I am police chief, we will continue to foster and build these important partnerships. I want to thank everyone who was able to join us today for this press conference announcing a breakthrough in not just one, but two cold cases which span the state of Ohio. Both cases go back decades and highlight the intensive, never-ending work that our law enforcement officers do every day to protect our communities. Our officers are driven by an inherent desire to solve the cases that they investigate and provide resolution so that not only the criminals may be brought to justice, but so that the families can find some peace in their lives. I'm reminded of the scripture in the Bible that in Romans 15:13 it says, "May the God of hope fill you all with joy and peace, so that the power of the Holy Spirit you may abound in hope." There are families who have believed and have hoped, and now we are able to provide some answers for their decades and decades of tribulation. So today we highlight the remarkable work done by our law enforcement officers at all levels, both here in the city of Youngstown and across our state. Private organizations, scientists, and concerned citizens, all having the same goal. And that goal is to help bring a sense of peace to the families who sought answers and who have believed for decades. Now, this time I would like to have Captain Jason Simon, who heads up our Chief of Detectives for the Youngstown Police Department provide some information on the case on Youngstown John Doe.
Thank you, Chief, Mayor, Attorney General. First, foremost, there's cookies and coffee in the back. I had both, so you will not be the first one. If you're worried about being the first one to have one, don't, because they've been consumed already. So please enjoy some refreshments back there. So 17,000. This is a number I want everyone to keep in mind throughout our presentation here. 17,000. As I recount the story of our Youngstown John Doe and the remarkable circumstances that brought us and Fayette County together here today. On September 10th, 1987, a grandfather and grandson were squirrel hunting in the woods off the 2200 block of Liberty Road near the old Mount Hope Cemetery. Sadly, their bonding time was cut short by the discovery of a human skull and other bones laying just on or slightly below the surface. YPD was called to the scene and thus began an investigation that took all of us on a journey through time and emerging and evolving science and technology. YPD immediately began to try to identify John Doe. Far more questions arose than answers, as you would expect, and we sought the guidance of Youngstown State University's Anthropology Department to help in the identification of the person. By all accounts of the remains collected, the individual is likely an African-American male between 30 and 44 years of age who had perhaps been in the woods 3 to 5 years. No further evidence was available and no leads came to fruition. Regrettably, the sands of time continued to run as Youngstown John Doe remained unidentified and a family somewhere went without answers. And then, one day in August of 2021, as fate would have it, a young woman called the Youngstown Police Department to speak to investigators. She had been a student of anthropology in the early 2000s and remembers seeing the skull and bones in their laboratory. A little older now and with children of her own, this young woman could not get the thought out of her mind that this individual was someone's child somewhere. She wanted to ensure that we continued the investigation and did everything in our power to bring it to conclusion. And with that phone call, a case that had been cold for 34 years was now warm again. That young woman will be speaking here today. Detective Sergeant David P. Sweeney took lead on the case. Soon, however, the team would grow larger and greater in scope than anyone would have imagined. In the latter part of 2021, the remains were sent to BCI in order to attempt the extraction of DNA and to potentially enter Youngstown John Doe into NamUs, the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System. Some DNA was initially able to be extracted from the teeth for a CODIS profile, and BCI began work on facial reconstruction of the skull. On August 25th of last year, YPD and BCI held a joint press conference, as many of you will remember, in the Youngstown PD roll call room to reveal the facial reconstruction of Youngstown John Doe, which sits here again today. We requested that anyone with information call us, and Detective Sergeant Sweeney went around the city and to all kinds of locations posting flyers for everyone to call in with information if they had it. The decision was then made to send some of the discovered long bones to Othram in the Woodlands, Texas. Othram conducts molecular biology, population genetics, and bioinformatics as processes for building DNA profiles with nearly 500,000 identifiable markers. Soon after, in late December of just last year, we received a call from a tipster in Cincinnati, Ohio, who potentially had information as to the identification of our Youngstown John Doe, whom the tipster believed was a missing young man from Toledo in 1981. Quickly following this lead, we realized that this missing man was not our Youngstown John Doe, but rather a John Doe from across the state. Swift and incredible work was done by BCI, and Fayette County will speak to their case after ours. In January of this year, we received communication from Othram that our genetic genealogy request from Youngstown John Doe had been picked up for funding by the Porchlight Project. The Porchlight Project began in 2018 and is a privately funded organization which assists agencies in Ohio with DNA testing and genealogy. As it turns out, Othram works with Porchlight exclusively for Ohio DNA and missing persons cases such as ours. This gave us another break that this case needed. Since we were still exploring funding sources at the time, representatives from the Porchlight Project will also be speaking here today. Othram was able to successfully extract DNA from the bones we had sent them, enough to build a comprehensive DNA profile suitable for genealogical analysis. The Porchlight Project used those results in GEDmatch and built a profile of family relatives discovering that the tree went back to a great-grandfather who had passed in 1910. Further research by Porchlight, Detective Sergeant Sweeney, the Mahoning County Coroner's Office, and BCI affirmed what genetic genealogy uncovered: a conclusive and definitive identification for our Youngstown John Doe. 17,000. I asked you to keep that number in mind. It was 17,000 days ago to this day, exactly. 46 years, 6 months, and 15 days. August the 13th, 1976, that a missing report was filed on Youngstown John Doe. This young man was Robert Earl Sanders, 23 years old at the time of his disappearance. I'm going to show you a picture of Mr. Sanders. YPD conducted an investigation at the time of Mr. Sanders' disappearance, but no leads revealed his whereabouts. It was not until 11 years later, in September of 87, that he was discovered on the east side. It took 34 more years for a brave woman to come forward and provide information. Then it took an astounding collaborative effort of local and state government and law enforcement, scientists, state-of-the-art DNA laboratory in the great state of Texas, and a privately funded organization committed to providing closure for families, for us to deliver closure to ours. Youngstown John Doe, Robert Earl Sanders, can finally rest with his family. It's so paramount that everyone here today and everyone who's tuned in to watch understand and appreciate that this case was solved by not only the hard work and perseverance of us, but more importantly from the development and sustainment of these relationships that we've built with the community, the government, you in the media, especially private entities, and also with information that comes to us from the men and women in the public. No one of us can do it alone. But as you can see, we can all do it together. Once more, I cannot speak highly enough of the interminable work and perseverance from Detective Sergeant David Sweeney of YPD, Teresa Gaetano, the Chief Investigator of the Mahoning County Coroner's Office, Jennifer Lester of BCI's Missing Persons Unit, Samantha Molnar, the forensic artist for BCI, Steve Irwin from their media, and the amazing team that I'm not able to mention because I simply don't know them all. There's so many. James Renner and Valerie Bogart of the Porchlight Project, Michael Vogan and Samantha Payne of Othram in Texas, Alicia Yelkin, our tipster for Mr. Sanders, and those in the media, all of you who helped share their stories. I have to thank AG Yost, of course, and the mayor and the chief for supporting and encouraging that amazing team of individuals, and I know you are all proud of their work as well. It's important to acknowledge that this investigation into Robert's disappearance and death is still ongoing. At this time, the Mahoning County Coroner's Office will list the cause of Mr. Sanders' death as undetermined. The entire city of Youngstown and Youngstown Police Department would like to once more extend our absolute deepest condolences to Robert's family during this trying time. We have previously met and spoken with them, and though they elected not to be here today, they did want us to convey that they are grateful for our work and very appreciative of all of our efforts. They are requesting privacy from the media as they begin to close this chapter in their lives. This press conference today is about Robert and Fayette County's John Doe, which you'll hear about in just a few moments. Nonetheless, we want to assure the public, the media, and most importantly, the other families of missing persons that the investigation into their loved one's disappearance also continues. These cases are always challenging, but they are never forgotten about. Anyone with information on the whereabouts of a missing person is asked to contact the Youngstown Police Department or the jurisdiction of where the person lived, or to call Crime Stoppers so we can help build a closure to family and friends. And YPD and any other individual here will take questions at the end. I believe Ms. Yelkin. Ms. Yelkin, our tipster for Youngstown John Doe, now has a few words to say.
Good afternoon. Oof. That was a very wonderful speech. My name is Alicia, and this has been very important to me. We have all met someone in our lives that stick with us. It's just their face, their attitude, whoever they are. It's just you can't forget them. Well, that becomes unforgettable, and as time passes, that person still visits us in our thoughts, and we find ourselves, whatever happened to him? Whatever happened to them? In the early 2000s, 20 years ago, I saw my person in a forensic anthropology class. He wasn't sitting next to me, though. Rather, he was in front of me in what appeared to be a lost and found box with the most amazing smile I'd ever seen. I wondered forever who he was. I wondered what he looked like, and he haunted me in a little bit because he was like, hey, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Believe it or not, it didn't take me 20 years to make this phone call. I called, and I stopped different police officers, and nobody took me seriously. Nobody took the time. One department told me they were just filing away all their cold cases and their old cases, and they don't go back into them. So, late one night, about a year and a half ago, I was scrolling through the phone because my children were finally asleep, and I saw an article about Detective Dave Sweeney. And it stated that he was a go-getter. He wanted things done. He was never giving up, no matter how old it was. And I said, you know what? Let's put this to the test and see if he takes me seriously. And after a very bizarre phone call, because I left a rather crazy one about how I knew where a body was, but don't worry, I didn't do it. He did return the phone call. It's so crazy because you think when you're calling the police, you get this anxiety, the same kind I'm experiencing speaking in front of people, but like you're doing something wrong even though you're doing something right. It's very easy. It's so easy once you get the ball rolling. And believe it or not, it's going to take the weight off of your chest as well if you ever know something of this gratitude or this kind of nature. And that man put his, what do they call them, gumshoes? They put his, he just went for it all the way, and he informed me of the steps. He told me that he was never giving up. I was surprised when I got a call, and I saw some work that I didn't even think existed. Detective Sweeney, Captain Jason Simon, which is a small world because I did start off in a police academy with him a long time ago, and we went very different directions, but somehow came back together. The team underneath your command, Attorney General Yost, it's phenomenal. They don't even like wait anymore to like red flag somebody and wait and, oh, you got to do this. They're like, we got something. Why are we slowing it down? Give these families closure. Bring home their babies. Know where your family is. Take them out of the purgatory they're existing in and let them heal. It's so important. So I have to say that it was like Christmas 2 weeks ago, knowing that this was about to happen. It was Christmas for me, and it was the greatest Christmas of my life because I finally got to know Robert. I got to know his name, and it's insane when you think about somebody that often and you just, it's your person. It's your person that you need to know. You want to know what happened to them. You want to know where they ended up. So I guess, even if I'm rambling, I want to say that, like, anyone out in Ohio area in general, if you know something, don't give up. Don't worry about how many people don't listen to you. You're going to find a department with the resources, with the people that'll take you seriously and give it a shot. No matter how little that information is, you're going to help a family, and that is going to be, it helps you as well. Trust me, your soul will be alleviated, and you feel great. So thank you for your time, and I'm so glad you all did it. You did an amazing job. Thank you, and I'm not good at this.
That's truly what's it about. She never gave up, and Sweeney, that's what I'm calling Youngstown pride right there, man. She threw the challenge to you, and that's what we do in the city. We don't let anything go by. I guess Mr. Renner is going to speak now. That wasn't the name on the list. Now, did we confirm who she knows what she's doing? Thank you. Foul.
On behalf of the Porch Light Project, I would like to extend my condolences to the Sanders family. It has been a privilege to assist in bringing resolution to this case, and I hope that you are able to find some closure and peace. The Porch Light Project was founded in 2019, and it's our mission to provide funding for new DNA testing and genetic genealogy for cold cases in the state of Ohio. We rely mostly on private donations, so if you'd like more information or to donate, please visit porchlightonline.org. The Porch Light Project was contacted by Othram Labs about this case in January of this year, and we were able to provide funding immediately. As the lead genealogist for Porch Light, I went in search of a common ancestor between this John Doe and a living relative. We are fortunate in this circumstance to have a number of close DNA relatives in GEDmatch to use for comparison. After we built out a family tree and narrowed down a possible candidate, we compared notes with Youngstown detectives and were able to give a name to our John Doe, Robert Earl Sanders. When you think about it, our life stories are literally written in our bones. When you combine the science of DNA with the research methods of genealogy, we're able to create a reliable snapshot of a person's life without ever knowing them. This incredible method of investigation is crucial to cases like these that have gone unsolved for decades without any new leads and might never get solved otherwise. In the 5 years that investigative genetic genealogy has been in practice, close to 500 leads have been provided to law enforcement that led to the identification of both perpetrators and unidentified remains. The best way that a person can help move these cases forward is to take an interest in your past. Test at one of the consumer DNA companies like Family Tree DNA, then upload those results into GEDmatch so that professionals can use them to work on law enforcement cases like the ones here today. You can also create a family tree on a site like Ancestry and make it public so that genealogists continue to have credible sources for their research.
So thank you, Val, very much, Porchlight Project and everyone. I'd like to introduce Sheriff Vernon Sanforth of Fayette County, and he is now going to recount the tale of their Fayette County John Doe.
Good morning.
Allowing us to be part of this and for your due diligence and of your staff at the Youngstown Police to help us identify our John Doe. In 1981, November of 1981, a body of a young man was found in a small creek in the northern part of Fayette County. And from that point on, it was referred to as the Lampe Road John Doe. We had no idea who he was. All the efforts were made and throughout the intervening years to identify John Doe, but to no avail. And because of the due diligence of Youngstown, who received a tip of that wasn't their John Doe, but the detectives in Youngstown took the effort to contact BCI and say, this may be one of your John Does in the database. BCI took the effort to look that up and found out that it very possibly could be the Fayette County Lampe Road John Doe. Our office over the years has taken extreme efforts to try to identify the Lampe Road John Doe. And today, through those efforts, 41 years later, we're able to say that our John Doe is Theodore Teddy Long, age 19, from the Toledo area. It gives us some sense of comfort that we no longer have to identify Teddy as the Lampe Road John Doe. We now have a name that our detectives, as they continue to work this homicide case, now they have a name, and we'll refer to him as Teddy Long from this point forward. Our condolences go to the family that have been looking for 41 years to try to identify and locate their loved one. Where our hope is now that this will bring some closure to the Long family. And as our detectives continue working diligently to now solve this homicide. I was my first year in law enforcement in 1981, and this has been a case over the years that every detective that's been in the Fayette County Sheriff's Office has inherited this case, and it became personal. They reviewed the case, they've sent it to every available source of trying to identify who this might be. We've tried to not let any stone go unturned. But because of a tip that may have gone to the wrong agency, we found out who our John Doe was. And those tips are vital, just as much as any technologies out there. We've used the technology to now confirm Teddy and Teddy's family. But more importantly, we'll be able to return Teddy to his proper resting with his family. We have a appreciation for the Youngstown Police that they didn't give up on this, even though it wasn't their John Doe. They took the effort to make the phone call to BCI that started the ball rolling to eventually identify Teddy. So our appreciation to the Youngstown Police, our sincere appreciation to Attorney General Yost and to the staff at BCI for their due diligence and working hard at solving the identity of Teddy Long. Our work begins to try to solve the homicide, and we will start. We are not giving up on this. We'll continue to put in our resources to do the homework to try to find out who took the life of Teddy and why that was done. We may never find that out, but we'll continue to work on this case until we are exhausted in all the resources that are out there. So once again, thank you, General Yost. Thank you, Youngstown.
go and state how much teamwork and the vested interests of law enforcement play a part in every one of these cold cases. Overseeing the cold case unit, there can be many obstacles or challenges, but it's also a pleasure when you see something come about like today, where the dedicated work of investigators from multiple agencies, combined with forensic laboratory scientists and criminal analysts who go above and beyond because they have the vested interest in these cases. We all are working together as a team. We're all in a unity for that vested interest to find answers. And, as stated earlier, my condolences go out to the families of Theodore Long and Robert Sanders. But hopefully today gives a little bit of a puzzle piece to some answers. But this vested team from, the cold case unit of BCI, Youngstown Police Department, Fayette County Sheriff's Office, Porchlight Project, and every other person who's involved in this, it's not going to stop. We're going to continue to find and look for other answers. And I mean, it's just, I think everyone should take a step back and look how this vested team has reached this point, from the citizen tips that led to dedicated investigators, to the laboratory scientists, to the criminal intelligence analysts, to the furtherance of now the identification of both of these individuals. So, I mean, I can't say thanks enough to everybody involved.
We want to thank everyone from both departments to really come together for this. This is truly, as I'm hearing the information, and the chief will tell you, I'm often asking questions. Well, how did this one connect to this dot? And you never know that you may have that missing piece to make a connection, and it's not even here. We're talking 180 miles away, and it came from a dot that we had to connect the dot from them over there. And I really, once again, as these families are living with not knowing, day in and day out about their loved one and some closure, this just gives them just another step closer to closure. And at this time, I would have Roger Davis from BCI. That was Roger? Oh, man, I'm moving now. So at this time, what I like to do is actually questions and answers. And if we have questions and answers for those who were involved, Sweeney, I'm sure they may have questions for you, but you probably would suck up all the time. And just for the team and from BCI, from YPD, from the Fayette County, from all who were involved, and might I say, Elisa, is it Alyssa? Alicia? I mean, for you to continue that passion. I've been in the archaeology department in YSU, and none of those bones spoke to me like it spoke to you. But when things are on your heart and your mind, we must continue to do so. And sometimes our thoughts are a little different than others. But when you have something on your heart and your mind, let no one distract you from that. So I'm going to open the floor for questions and answers at this time. If we don't have any, great. Jerry? Come on, Sweeney, man. You've been trying to hide behind. Yeah. I tried to spare you, man. I said, yeah, I tried.
Thank you, sir.
Great job.
So one of the most important things that I've learned on this is first be able to listen before I speak. And that came true because when she called, she said, I have a really crazy story to tell you. And we talked on the phone probably an hour and a half that day. So it's important. And even when things the tipster from Cincinnati, when that information wasn't lining up, I just was quiet, wrote down the information and said, hey, can I call you back? And then what really the most important part of this is the networking. It doesn't matter what time, day or night
I call Jen Lester, and she hooks me up with someone, or even with Porchlight. I mean, they bought into this before it got on and funded us, so that thrusted the case forward too. On both cases, down south in Fayette County, we talked to the staff down there, and they really embraced everything, and we moved as a team, even being with that distance with everyone. You talked about the other cases that we have coming up. We do have a John Doe that was found in the Mahoning River and within sight of here. It's within a quarter of a mile. That's the next case that we'll be kind of focusing on. And I've talked to my partners about this, and we need to move this forward on every one step at a time as a team. Also, within the past week, we received a telephone call from a police department up in Wisconsin on one of our colder cases, and we're working with them. Unfortunately, I can't give all that information out, but I look forward to working with Porchlight on that. That one is going to definitely come down to DNA and with the private labs. So Val and I will be talking at weird hours to get this accomplished to where we need to be. But those are the two cases. Also, when we talk about Youngstown, we need to be concerned about the outlying jurisdictions. The media was helpful in our cases of missing people or unidentified cases, but we also have cases in Lowville or other parts of our county that need to be looked into. If someone would just call with some information, give your department a call. Someone is willing to listen. And they will respond back to you what they looked into to see if it was theirs or the information that could be handed off.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Can you identify a motive for the death of Robert, or is there?
So we're working with the coroner's office, and right now it is ruled undetermined. So we're hoping that with the conference today that someone calls in so we can take the investigation to the next step.
Councilwoman?
Yeah, Sarge, for equipment, so what was the dollar, could you go to for assistance, for financial assistance, what was the dollar amount that was entailed to do this, to do the DNA testing, et cetera?
Well, each case typically costs between $6,000 to $8,000. This one was a little easier, a little faster than most cases. I think it was somewhere around $4,000.
And there's no other, kind of fund for it, and you have set up?
I'm unaware of that. I know early on, once we started working and we were talking about finding funding for this case, remember, we're going into new territory with this DNA. So with that being said, we're going to have to address these issues as a team. That way we can thrust these cases forward.
I think probably the councilwoman was asking. She has a motive in mind. She's thinking, and I know she's on the safety committee. And as you were asking the question, I'm thinking, no one probably you don't realize there's a cost and really so the work you do when you have the public and private partnerships are critical, because if it had not been for the private partnerships, the public probably sometimes we don't even get that far. So that's why we have to continue those partnerships, and if there's other partners out there, we would love to partner with you to fund this opportunity so that we can bring those families some closure. And $4,000 to $8,000 is not a lot if you're that family member. It is a small cost of doing business, but I think as the more we expose the opportunities that we have, and Sergeant Sweeney said it best, that we're entering a new territory with the technology. Back in the 76 or even 81, none of this would have been possible. No social media. Captain and I were talking, there was no social media available to have this conversation. And now that we have the DNA, this PP, private and public partnerships are really critical, and we probably need to continue to work as partners to figure out how we can expand that footprint. Captain?
Yeah. I'm glad Councilwoman Davis asked that question. Something I'd like to bring up just for everyone's knowledge, and the chief and I have had discussions about this prior to even our identification of Youngstown John Doe, but coincidentally enough, and it is just a coincidence, starting tomorrow, the Mahoning Valley Homicide Task Force, as well as the Youngstown Police Department, are going to be receiving training in genealogical DNA processes and the investigatory end of it, right? As I told the chief, it is the goal for the Youngstown Police Department specifically, and I can only speak to us, right? But the goal of YPD Detective Department specifically in the year 2023 to start exploring genealogical DNA for more of our cold cases. And again, that's going to take some time. We're going to have to find resource funding, right? But we're going to look at all of this as a larger picture, as a goal for the Detective Division in 2023 and onward, so that we can have more successes like we do here. And of course, that involves continuing our partnerships, continuing investigations. So that will be something that even prior to this amazing discovery was kind of in the works to do. So I'm glad you asked. So you're going to hopefully see a lot more success stories coming out of Youngstown or any other jurisdiction. With YPD, right? I mean, our cold cases, we're going to start taking more of a genealogical look to our unsolved cases. So the training is going to be local. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah, we're bringing it here to the city. Absolutely.
Anybody else?
We had a question online for Sheriff of Bay County.
For the sheriff or from the sheriff?
For the sheriff.
Okay.
Regarding the sudden death. Go ahead.
If I may, there was a question concerning the cause of death for Teddy Long. We knew from the moment he was pulled out of the water that it was a homicide. He had been shot multiple times, and it was obvious that there was an effort by the assailant to extract the bullets from his body. There was a mutilation related to that. Wow. So we knew we had a homicide immediately, and it's been treated as a homicide since then.
Of course, Joe, you look like you got something on your mind. I'm good. You're good? Yeah. Once again, thank you for all of you attending. Thank you for all your partnerships, and we continue. I can't thank you enough on behalf of the families that are here in the city of Youngstown and those across the state of Ohio, how much this is impactful and how important this will be. We look forward to continue to help families bring closure to their families. Thank you. God bless you.